locked in.
Look at what we have here, folks.
To the only show that matters.
The cream of the crop.
Duke Loves Rasslin.
And there is no one that does it better than
your host.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
The Duke.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Welcome back to Duke Loves Rasslin, the show about pro wrestling and everything else. I am your illustrious host, the Duke, a.k.a. the man of the hour, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour. How's it going out there? Listen, we got an action-packed show today, okay? Because I have royalty joining the Duke Loves Rasslin podcast outside of the Duke here. Queen PR. You know, she is the queen of wrestling media, the queen of wrestling journalism, and she's going to share her thoughts on so many things going on in the entire world of professional wrestling. I'm also going to give you the top stories of the world of professional wrestling, aka Run the Ropes. But before we get to any of that stuff, wait, hold on. The line is ringing. Hold on one second.
Hello?
Duke, how are you? This is Coach Davis.
Coach Davis, what's going on, man?
Not too much. I was just calling, if you had a few minutes, to tell you about my pro wrestling club that I have at my school.
Well, sure. I mean, Coach, you know I'm recording this week's episode of the Duke Loves Wrestling podcast. So, yeah, tell me about the pro wrestling club you got going on.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, and thanks for letting me tell you about it. So I have a I'm a middle school teacher, and at my school it's grades 6, 7, and 8. And we have a pro wrestling club, and it's just great. I'm able to reach at-risk kids through pro wrestling. We meet once a week on Mondays, and we watch and talk pro wrestling, and it's great. We've been able to Skype with some really big names, some WWE Hall of Famers, and then when we're not doing that, we're watching wrestling. It's great.
That's pretty interesting there, Coach Davis. So you're a teacher, and you started a club for these kids. Now, every Monday, is this after school or is this during school hours where you meet with the kids?
Okay, so yeah, it's after school. We meet for an hour after school every Monday. And it's fantastic. Kids look forward to it every week. And it's like, Coach Davis, who's going to be our next guest speaker? And if it's not that, then it's Coach. We need to pick back up in WrestleMania that we were watching, the last WrestleMania that we were watching.
Wow, that's interesting. So you show them some of the classic stuff. Do you go over any of the current wrestling product as well?
Now that's actually kind of funny. They really more or less inform me about what's going on currently in the world of wrestling than what I do with them, because I have two kids ages 4 and 2, and they take up all my spare time, and I'm actually watching them right now as I talk to you. So when Monday Night Raw's on, I'm putting my kids to bed. I know, sweetie. I'm sorry, Duke.
Well, hold on a second there, Coach. Wait a second. What are the names of your two kids there?
My kids' names are not Duke, that's you, I'm sorry, is Dusty and Scarlett. So,
okay.
I wanted to name my son Duke, but my wife said no.
Uh-oh. Well, now, what does she have against people named Duke? Am I going to have a match against her? What's going on here?
Well, I had this strange love for G.I. Joe as a child, and so that's where I got the name Scarlett from. And then obviously Duke was another character, and that's why I wanted to name him Duke, but she said no. So we named him, he's actually Dustin the second, so we just call him Dusty. That way there's no confusion.
Now, where did you get the name Dustin from?
I don't know. My parents got it somehow, so, because, Dustin's my name, and I don't know where my parents got it, but that was the only name we could really agree on.
Makes sense. That's funny. So you have two future Hall of Famers right there in your family there, and I can hear them in the background. They sound like they're about to set up a match as well, which is pretty cool.
Oh yes, we do our fair share of wrestling And sometimes it's on a trampoline, sometimes it's in the hallway, sometimes it's while we're getting ready for bed. But
So, Coach, tell us, what is the name of the wrestling club that you have at your school?
so unfortunately, I don't have a really cool name for it. It's because it's pretty generic. It's just the Pro Wrestling Club at Westside Middle School, and I because I'm not that creative with that kind of stuff. I'm pretty I'm a keep it simple guy. I think this keep it simple stupid. I think that's the phrase. But it's just the Pro Wrestling Club at Westside Middle School.
Well, that's pretty cool. At least everybody knows what they're getting into just by reading the names. So I don't blame you one bit for that. So tell us about some of the kids. Because you said you meet with them every Monday, and you sit down and you watch wrestling. Is there a goal that you're trying to reach by doing this? Are you just showing them wrestling stuff, or how does this tie into them being students?
So ultimately the goal with my pro wrestling club is to help kids stay in school, to help teach them life lessons about making good decisions and avoid making bad decisions in life. And we do that through a couple of ways. And a big part of this is just developing relationships with the kids that comes throughout the year, because in the pro wrestling club we turn no one down. We accept everyone, grades 6 through 8, just because wrestling accepts all fans for who they are. And so the longer I get to know these kids, the more they open up to me, and I'm able to talk to them and kind of give them a little bit of guidance or a little bit of wisdom. But one of the cool things that we're able to do is we've been able to Skype with some WWE Hall of Famers, with Jeff Jarrett and Booker T, and setting up the Skypes with them. I tell them I really need for you to pour into this club and invest in them and tell them some kind of positive message, something to kind of give them hope, and something to inspire them to be a better person. And both of those guys really just jumped on that, and they really hit home runs with that.
Wow, that's great stuff, and shout out to Booker T and Jeff Jarrett taking the time out to speak to your kids there and part of the wrestling club. That's pretty cool. Have you seen any kind of success in terms of school attendance or homework improvement, anything like that? Have you seen any instances of that with any of the kids in the group?
Matter of fact, we have one child, one student who's been turning in her work, has been eager about getting her grades up, and there was one day I approached her. I found out from I think one of her friends that she likes wrestling, and I said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to our club?" I said, "We'd love to have you." Because this pro wrestling club is great. This is kind of unprecedented stuff we're doing, because there are no other clubs that have like celebrities, if you will, interact with them. And so she listened to me. She started coming. She's getting her work turned in. And attendance is very good. The kids in my club, they are always there on Mondays when we meet. They're never absent, which is great, because if you're not in school, you're not going to be learning. And I always tell my students, if you're not here, your peers get one day smarter than you.
Isn't that the truth? The truth? We're talking to Coach Dustin Davis, and he's telling us about this wrestling club that he has at the middle school he teaches at. So what's your ultimate goal with the club there, Coach? Where do you see this thing going here?
The ultimate goal is for me is to reach as many at-risk kids as I possibly can, and just help them make good life decisions. Scarlett, are you okay? I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
You okay? Okay, that's okay. Y'all keep jumping, sweetie. It's just to reach as many at-risk kids as I can, and just help them make good lifelong decisions and be a good mentor to them, to where even if they're in high school, they can come back and say, Coach Davis, I need some help with something. Can you help me out with this? I need some help because I don't feel comfortable talking to my parents, but I know I can trust you with this to give me good wisdom, good guidance.
Now, this is located in Georgia, right?
Yes, sir. We are in a small little town called Winder, which is in Barrow County. We're about halfway between the city of Gainesville and the city of Athens. Go Dogs! But that's kind of where we are, geographically speaking.
How's the socioeconomic climate out there? Because I know that part of the country, they've been hit hard, especially with the economy and things of that nature there.
Yes, sir. So the last time I checked, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I want to say we were over 60%, maybe 65% free and reduced price lunch. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of poverty in my area. And it's impacted our club too, because I had 2 club members who were regulars who were there all the time. And then they just all of a sudden, they moved, and I didn't have any notification really until like our next club meeting. I'm like, hey, where's Tommy at? And they're like, Tommy moved. I'm like, oh, I hate that, because I know what those kids were getting out of the club. And if anything, if nothing else, it was that time where they could forget about their problems,
Well said. And why pro wrestling, Coach? I mean, you could have chosen anything and everything under the sun in sports and entertainment. Why did you choose pro wrestling as your tool to reach these kids?
I chose pro wrestling for a few reasons. Number one, I love wrestling. I've loved wrestling ever since WrestleMania 2. That's when I fell in love with wrestling. But wrestling has no limits. And when I say it has no limits, wrestling accepts everybody for who they are. It doesn't matter if you're fat, you're skinny, you're bald, you're popular, you're rich, you're poor. Wrestling accepts you for who you are, no matter what. And I thought this is a great way to reach at-risk kids, to reach kids that will fall through the cracks. Because football, basketball, sports in general will reach a huge percentage of your student body. But there's always going to be that percentage that will fall through the cracks. And I thought wrestling would be a fantastic way to reach that demographic.
Well said. And I mean, you literally have coached, so this isn't, you have a full perspective on the effectiveness of a club like this, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow. Listen, I commend you for what you're doing, because I know from a personal experience, one of the main reasons why I'm such an avid wrestling fan is because my parents from a very young age, they recognized that whenever wrestling was on the TV, I would really sit up and pay attention to it. And they used that as a tool to keep me on the straight path. So, get your homework done, you can watch wrestling. You're not going to be able to watch wrestling if you don't do your chores or, things of that nature. So I really respect this story that you're telling here and your vision for how to reach these kids and kind of keep them straight. It's awesome.
Well, we certainly try, and the kids in my club, they're all pretty good, well-behaved kids. I don't get emails from teachers about misbehavior or anything like that, and I certainly don't get any emails from teachers, or I haven't been in the principal's office about, now, Miss Davis, Jimmy tried to put somebody in a headlock. Tell me why that happened. I haven't got anything like that, because the kids in the club, they know the first time they do that, unfortunately they're done, because we just can't have that kind of stuff happen. Which is great that they're able to distinguish the difference, if you will.
That's well said. Well said. Listen, Coach, if other folks want to talk to you about potentially replicating what you're doing in their areas, or if there are some wrestlers out there who want to reach out and participate and be guest speakers or what have you, what's the best way that folks can reach you?
There's two ways to reach me, and I'm a fan of anybody who's willing to work with us. Plain and simple. If there's somebody that's got a good message that they can tell kids, then I am absolutely all for it. But we're on social media. We're on Twitter, and we are a pro wrestling club at WMS97. So you can go there and you can follow us there, and then you can email me from there. Or my school email address is Dustin, DUSTIN, .R.Davis at Barrow, BARROW, K12.GA.US. That's long and obnoxious email address, but that's just the way it is. So, but those are the two best ways to reach me, and I would love for everybody that's listening to this, check us out on Twitter and follow us, because the more followers we get, the more credibility we get, and it's a growing club. It's a new club. I think it's a new type of club, and I hope this becomes a trend like nationwide, because I really think this is a great way to reach kids that schools really haven't tapped into.
Wow, good stuff. His name is Coach Dustin Davis, and he's doing some great things with his pro wrestling club at the middle school he teaches at. Listen, Coach, we'll definitely be checking in with you, and I'll reach out to some wrestlers and encourage them to connect with you, because, this is really something that is special, and everyone should be talking about it. Really proud of you, what you're doing, and support it.
I appreciate it. We are a very blessed group, small group that we have right now, and the wrestling community has just kind of, for lack of a better way to say it, has really adopted what we're trying to do. I think we have 45 followers on Twitter right now. I want to say close to 15 of those are professional wrestlers or in the wrestling industry in some way. We have Jeff Jarrett follows us on Twitter. Hacksaw Jim Duggan follows us. You follow us on Twitter as well. There's Scott Hall is a new follower of us, which I'm super excited about. Scott Hall following us. WOW, which is Women of Wrestling, which I'm sure you know of, because it's just I absolutely love the product of WOW. Jesse Jones follows us. Stephen Dickey follows us. The Beverly Hills Babe follows us. We've just been so incredibly blessed with how the wrestling community is really kind of, for lack of a better way to say it, has adopted us.
Well, you folks are definitely worth adopting. So I just keep up what you're doing, and I'm sure that your numbers are going to continue to grow, and these kids are going to continue to have examples of folks to look up to who will be talking to them personally. So once again, keep up the great work.
Thanks, Duke. I appreciate everything you've done for us, and I appreciate you taking the time to just listen to me and listen to my kids yell and scream in the background.
It's time to run the ropes. It's when I cover the top stories in the world of professional wrestling. Let's go.
Good morning. This is your wake-up call.
Dean Ambrose officially moved on. That's right, folks. Dean Ambrose, 1/3 of The Shield, officially wrestled his last match in the WWE last weekend. And it was interesting because the WWE, they've made it official. They've moved Ambrose's name to the Alumni section of the WWE.com website. Ambrose had a hell of a career. He held every major title. He was involved in all the major feuds. He even headlined a couple of pay-per-views. Here is a guy that really made it to the top and as far as I'm concerned, he's an overachiever. And I know some of you are really big Dean Ambrose fans, but listen, everybody who ever wrestled this guy had to tone down their own wrestling ability and tone up their brawling ability in order to make something decent out of a match with him. Can't deny that. So I don't really feel this is a major loss, to be honest with you. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Ambrose. Is he going to end up in another wrestling promotion, or is he going to do something entirely different? I don't know. But for all you folks out there saying it's a work and it's not true and whatever, well, he's gone. His contract is up. He's moved to the alumni section. They promoted the fact that he had his last match, so figure it out. But goodbye, Ambrose. WWE doesn't need you. And if you ever come back, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who will beat you up and remind you why you should have stayed away. That's right. SmackDown Live receives new old wrestlers. Yeah, this was really interesting, folks. Andrade was moved to Raw as part of the draft. And then literally a week later, he's moved back to SmackDown Live with Zelina Vega and Aleister Black. Now, according to reports, Fox is going to be airing SmackDown Live this October. Fox requested that Andrade be moved back to SmackDown Live because they wanted a strong Latin American star to be on that TV show. Now, let's be honest here. Charlotte Flair and Andrade have been posting photos of each other all over the internet, right? All over social media. It's clear they're in a relationship with each other. My guess is that factored into Andrade being moved back to SmackDown. Let's keep everybody happy here. And Zelina Vega and Aleister Black, they're married. So there was no way to break those two up. You're not going to do that because WWE has a general policy of keeping married folk together. So, hey, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I actually like Andrade on SmackDown Live, and I like Aleister Black on SmackDown Live. I think that makes sense. I think there is more competition over there for their style of wrestling. I think they'll be able to shine better on SmackDown than they would on Raw. So, congratulations to them. And Zelina Vega, hey, she keeps winning. She doesn't lose. Hopefully we get to see Zelina Vega wrestle more. She's actually an accomplished wrestler. She has a lot of experience. I don't understand why we don't see more of her in-ring action. She's just doing this managerial stuff, which she's pretty good at, but still. I want to see Zelina Vega wrestle more. So let's get more of that in 2019, please. Please. WWE pulls stars from StarCast 2. Yeah, folks, my buddy Conrad Thompson, he's the host of Something to Wrestle and 83 Weeks and What Happened When, all these different great shows going on, all the podcasts. Conrad also has literally the mother of all wrestling conventions called StarCast. Started that last year. So StarCast 2, which is going to be taking place the next few weeks here, he actually signed The Undertaker and Kurt Angle to be part of that. Well, unfortunately, the WWE got wind, weren't happy about it. They signed The Undertaker to a new exclusive contract and pulled both stars from the event. There was even talk that they dangled Shawn Michaels as a suitable replacement, but ended up pulling him as well. And the reason being is because there's going to be a lot of AEW stars part of StarCast. WWE just did not want to mix the two. Hey, that's business, man. I mean, AEW, All Elite Wrestling, which is the promotion that Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, they're all executive vice presidents of, and the Khan family who own the Jacksonville Jaguars, the NFL team, they're the owners and they're billionaires. This is a real feud going on here, folks. This is the real deal. This is the biggest competition that the WWE has had since WCW. Anything having to do with AEW, I got to imagine WWE is going to continue to be against, and they're going to do everything in their power to not mix the two in any way, shape, or form. So I don't disagree with the move. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's unfortunate for the fans that were going to check out StarCast or even order it on Fight TV. If you can't be there, you can actually watch it on Fight, which is pretty cool. But hey, that's business, baby. In war, you're not going to give your competition any leg up. That's the way it goes. Luke Harper gets extended. Yeah, this was really interesting here. So Luke Harper put out this heartfelt message letting everybody know that he requested a release from his WWE contract. You know, he's just coming off of surgery. He was out injured for a while, and it just doesn't seem like the WWE has anything to do with him right now. So Harper says, hey, if you're not going to use me, release me. It all makes sense, right? Don't think so. The WWE adds an additional 6 months on his contract because Harper was out for 6 months without wrestling a match. He was injured. And the way the contracts are set up, if you're out for at least 6 consecutive months without wrestling a match, doesn't matter what it is, due to injury, due to whatever, your contract freezes. You hear that? It freezes. And when you're active again, whatever time you miss, they add on to the contract. So the guy walks in and says, hey, let me out of my contract. They say, we'll do you one better. We'll give you an additional 6 months, punk. 6 months. So that means this guy can't go to Ring of Honor or New Japan or AEW or somewhere else and reinvent himself. Nope. You're going to be stuck where you don't want to be. And we're essentially going to make your life miserable for the next 6 months because we're not going to make the competition, any competition, stronger. It's interesting. So the question is, what is WWE going to do with Harper now? Are they going to do to him what they did to Dean Ambrose, which is make him lose for months straight? That would be cool. Make him shave his head and put him in a ridiculous gimmick? Who knows? But it's interesting. I'll tell you, boy. Poor Luke Harper. Just when you think you were getting out, they pulled you right back in. And the number one story in the world of professional wrestling is Kevin Owens turns on New Day. Yeah, what an ungrateful, spineless little you know what this Kevin Owens is, folks. I can't believe he did this. He was added as an honorary member of the New Day, okay? This guy was filling in for Big E, who's injured right now. And everything was working out fine for the past week. And then on SmackDown Live, he ups and turns on Kofi Kingston and beats the daylights out of him and Xavier Woods. Just terrible. Terrible. I'll tell you can't trust this Kevin Owens. He's a snake. He's the worst, man. This guy turns on everybody. Every partner he's ever had, Sami Zayn, Chris Jericho, now Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, every person that Kevin Owens teams with, he turns on. So why would anyone want to ever align themselves with Kevin Owens? He's a turncoat. He's a sneak. He's a person to not be trusted. I'm telling you right now, folks, this guy, he's the worst. And I know that Kofi Kingston is going to get his revenge. And it's probably going to be coming up at the next pay-per-view. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm telling you right now, I'm very upset. I'm very upset about the fact that punk Kevin Owens turned on our champion, our WWE champion, Kofi Kingston, the nicest guy in the world. He didn't deserve this, okay? He tried to give a guy an opportunity, and this is how he repaid him. Terrible. Terrible. So stay tuned, because I know this is going to be a developing story. That's right. You've heard what I think. Now, what do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm a jerk? Maybe something in between? Head over to Facebook. Head over to Twitter. Type in Duke Loves Rasslin and let me know. Up next, we got her, the queen of wrestling journalism, Queen PR.
Hi, this is Earl Oliver from Sully's Vintage Wrestling.
This is Raj Giri with WrestlingInc.com.
This is Sean Reed, boxing writer and undercover low-key wrestling fan, and you're listening to Duke Loves Wrestling. Woo!
one of the best parts about having this podcast, number one, I'm able to reach out to my favorite wrestlers from yesterday, today, and even tomorrow, especially with a lot of these folks who are just starting off in the business. But in addition to that, finding folks who are passionate about professional wrestling, who grew up watching professional wrestling, and collaborating with them, it really is just a dream come true, because you're able to learn so much from each other. And you know how I am. I want to hear different perspectives. I want to hear how folks approach things from a different place than maybe I do, for various reasons there. And our next guest is definitely somebody who's coming from a perspective that, in my opinion, we don't hear enough from. So without further ado, listen, I went out and found some royalty, because I'm the Duke. So I had to go find the queen of pro wrestling media, okay? Now, she has the amazing podcast, Those Wrestling Girls. She's going to tell you how to find that. Excellent podcast, brand new, bringing some great perspectives, fun listen. So without further ado, she is Queen_PR on Twitter. Miss Patricia Rogers, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. Listen, before we really jump into things, tell us about your podcast, because it's really making some waves out there.
Oh, thanks. So Those Wrestling Girls is actually very new. We only have about 3 or 4 episodes right now, and my friend Krista and I, lifelong WWE fans, grew up in New York City, and we would get together and all we would talk about was wrestling, and we were like, we should start a blog. And I was like, well, I'm kind of passionate about the women's evolution, the women's division right now, so I would love to focus on that. We were like, maybe a blog isn't it, so then we just started recording ourselves talking about wrestling, and then it became a show, and we've been getting so much love online and on social media, including yourself. Thank you. And we just kind of wanted to make sure that with the women's evolution that there's enough focus being put towards the women's division like there is the men. You can go on YouTube and there's wrestling channels and all sorts of shows, thousands of them about, the male superstars. So I'm like, well, we're going to fill the void and we're going to talk about women.
That's great stuff. That's great stuff. And, in addition to your podcast, I know that you're a writer by trade. That's what you do. But you're the queen. So let me ask you an interesting question here.
Sure.
As the queen of pro wrestling media, if there was one trend out there related to pro wrestling, and especially as it pertains to media, if there was one trend that you could just do away with, like right now the queen mandates this is going to be gone, what would that one trend be and why?
Okay. Well, there's 2 things that I would definitely get rid of. And one on a light note is the what chants and fucking CM Punk chants. Those are the most dumbest chants ever. I don't even get anymore. It's the what chants are not funny anymore. CM Punk has not worked for this company for 5+ years. Get over it. What's the point of chanting his name? Anyway, back to wrestling media, I think a trend that I want to get away from is negativity. And there's a lot of wrestling blogs and especially on Twitter where they talk about WWE and they talk about the direction and the storylines and the characters with such negative. You would think that they had their own wrestling company and they just knew it all. And it's just always with a mocking tone, WWE can never get it right, and it's just negativity, and it takes the fun out of it.
That's an interesting perspective, and where do you think that comes from? Do you think people are just being cynical and negative for the heck of it, or do you think there's a valid concern about some of the things that are going on with the product today?
I think, and I've been talking about this a lot with my co-host Krista, and for some reason wrestling fans are very entitled, and I think because, and you have to remember what pro wrestling is. Pro wrestling is it's emotional investment, it's storytelling, it's characters, and we get connected to these people, we get really invested, and we tend to feel like we know it all. We know where Seth Rollins' character should go better than Vince. You know what I mean? And I think that's what makes wrestling special, is that we do feel this ownership or this this special connection towards it. And I think that has a lot to do with it. And then when you give all of these fans an outlet like Twitter, you're just like giving them like a platform to be negative. And then just the culture of internet trolls are negative.
Yeah, I hear that. And one of the things that I'm noticing from a lot of folks within the industry is that they're starting to fight back. And it's funny because you look at Sami Zayn's new storyline, his new character arc where he's literally calling out the trolls online, the trolls within the wrestling community, and putting the spotlight on them and shaming them, which that's not a bad idea. I think it's an interesting concept. Yeah, I bet you do.
Very modern.
Did he steal that from you?
Yeah. And Krista and I were there at Barclays Center when Sami Zayn came back and turned on us, and I was still like, I love you, Sami.
Oh boy.
I love Sami Zayn, but I like the character that he's going in, and I also like the new Daniel Bryan, because those seem like very modern or timely personas. Because the wrestling troll right now is like a villain at this point to the WWE. So I think personifying that through Sami Zayn is very smart.
Good call. Good call. And see, this is what I'm talking about. I mean, you're a woman of color. You're a pro wrestling fan. You're a writer. You know your stuff. Talk to us about the experience being a woman of color who's a pro wrestling fan. In fact, if you could describe it in one sentence, what would that be?
I want to say misunderstood. Because for me, like people meet me and I'm like a black girl from the Bronx, but like I work in the wellness industry, so I'm around a lot of white people and stuff like that, and I can easily exist in a lot of different environments. So when people meet me, they don't get me. So like when they realize like I'm a big WWE fan, they're just like so perplexed. They're just like, wait, what? Like who are you? Wait, wasn't you just at a Jay-Z concert? Like I'm just like a weird combination of people. So I get like I don't know, I feel out of place sometimes too, because like I mentioned before, like I watch a lot of YouTube channels, like What Culture and stuff like that, and these are all like foreign white guys. And it makes you feel like, you know, where do you fit, you know, especially like when we were starting our show, we were just like, you know, are people even going to want to hear from us kind of thing? But I've been fortunate enough to meet people like you and another podcast based here in New York City called The Jobber Tears, and they host these viewing parties every month for every pay-per-view at this bar in Midtown, and it really brings all of like the black wrestling fans together, and it is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, because you think you're one of one sometimes, and then you go into like these spaces and it's like all black wrestling fans, so it's just like, oh wow. I don't know if that answers your question, but that is a little bit of my experience.
And in fact, it brings another thing to mind here. Why does that matter? Why does it matter to you to connect with other people who look more like you and who may have experiences similar to yours and within the wrestling community? How does that help you as a fan or just in general as a person?
It makes me feel like I belong somewhere. So me and my dad are close and we watch wrestling together, and we have this saying called like, if we meet another wrestling fan, because it's not very common, we say that they're in the club. We'll be like, oh, they're in the club. Or like if we see like a celebrity at Raw, SmackDown, and they're a wrestling fan, we'll be like, oh, we didn't know Maria Menounos was in the club. So that should give you an idea of just like how you feel like you're just like, you have this secret that you like wrestling and you don't know who else is in on it too. So that alone, I don't know if you've experienced that. That alone is like, okay, like, do I tell people I like wrestling? But then to be a black person that likes wrestling and then to meet other black people that like wrestling, it's like, whoa, like, it's important. Representation matters, you know what I mean? Like, and that's why the Kofi Mania was so special. That's why, like those moments need to happen because no one understands like our perspective and stuff like that. And now that we have more superstars of color, it just opens up more, you know?
Yeah, that's very well said. And it's funny because, you know, I grew up in the early 80s, and to this day, anyone who's ever met me, especially as a young child, that's the kid who likes wrestling. It didn't matter to me that people would make fun of the fact that you're a wrestling fan, and it was even less accepted back then than it is today. But I'm a stubborn person. I feel like I can like what I want to like, and if you got a problem with that, it's probably going to make me like it even more.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. When you have that layer on the fact that you're a person of color as well, so it's like we're even a smaller percentage of the overall population, no matter what we're looking at. You know, when it comes to who's purchasing music, when it comes to who's in the country, you know, there's not as many of us as there are other people. So those voices tend to be much louder. It is great to see people who look like you and who have the same experiences, and you can connect with on a deeper level than you may be able to connect with other folks. That's a great call out there. Do you find that the wrestling community, is it more or less accepting of women of color than other communities and other forms of entertainment?
That's a good question, and I never really thought about that because I was lucky enough to have, you know, Krista, my black co-host from Brooklyn, and I was able to connect with the Jobber Tears podcast, which is run by all black people. So I never really thought about it like that. But I do like to think of the wrestling fan community as being inclusive. And I would hope that there isn't like a racial layer to things because I worked Access, and the diversity in like wrestling fans is insane. You know, so I don't know. I think it is very accepting. I think it's just all about like finding that tribe.
Absolutely. And how was Access? You said you worked Access.
I did. So I worked it for a day. I volunteered. Like a bunch of people sent the volunteer form to me, and when you volunteer, you actually get to access for free, and then you also enter a lottery to win WrestleMania tickets. So I did it, obviously, and it was really cool because you're literally just like, I was standing in front of the Bootios photo op. So I'm literally standing next to a big cereal box with like these like foam Bootios, and you just like basically stand there and like take pictures for people. And it was awesome because the energy, like, and it's Mania week, so you got people in New York from all over the world that's just excited to fucking be there, excited for Mania, and are literally like, you can just see the excitement. Like little kids were literally like running around shaking with excitement, like, and being around that energy is amazing. But I saw, you know, couples. I met a couple that was on their honeymoon, and they planned their honeymoon for Mania week. So they did everything for Mania week for their honeymoon. And they had their little newborn baby with them. I'm like, oh my God, that is so adorable. But then you have this newborn, but then I seen like freaking 80-year-old couple with WrestleMania shirts on from like 87. You know, like that's, and then I saw like deaf people with fucking in a wheelchair, like, so it's like wrestling fans are probably the most diverse fan base in the world. So I will hope that it's all about just finding your place and your tribe as far as fan bases go and fan communities.
You brought up an interesting point. Or you said you work in the wellness community, and oftentimes you're one of the few black folk in the room. Which is really interesting. And, you know, somebody like myself who's worked in government, I absolutely know what you're talking about. It's an interesting experience.
It is. It is.
When you talk to those folks in those spaces and open up and share and build relationships, you know, beyond just the professional level, when you start talking about who you are as a person, do you bring up pro wrestling? And if you do, how do they react?
Well, it's funny because in the last year, because of the women's evolution, I'm a very passionate person. So when I like something, like I love it. and I've been so into the women's evolution lately that, like, people already know that I like wrestling. Like, I don't even have to tell them. They're just like, you know, they just know, or like they'll see like a picture on my screensaver and it's like Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch or something. But it's normally not my main thing, but since we did the podcast, I definitely try to mention it more often that I'm a fan.
That's interesting. And how do they react to that? Do you find folk within the
It's always surprised.
Oh, okay.
It's always a shock because people meet me and they put me in a box because I'm a black girl from the Bronx. And they're like, "You like wrestling, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
You know what's funny about that though? Then if there aren't too many people around, they'll always whisper to you, "Well, you know, I used to watch, or I remember this." Everyone has a wrestling story, even the ones that try to look down.
Especially because of because I'm 29, so a lot of people my age that did not watch wrestling, that don't watch wrestling now watched it during the Attitude Era. So they'll be like, "Oh, I know DX, I know Rikishi." And like that's their contribution to the wrestling conversation.
Hey, at least they got something, right? At least they got something. Listen, we're talking to the queen of pro wrestling media. You can find her as Queen_PR. She's from the Those Wrestling Girls podcast. Yeah. Patricia Rogers. You posted something recently that really cracked me up, and in fact, it was on your show where you and your co-host spoke about the fact that when you were kids in school, you were getting in trouble sometimes because you were doing the DX crotch chops and saying "suck it" all over the place. What is that all about? We got to dig into this here.
But you have to remember our ages. So during the Attitude Era, 96 to 99, we were 6 and 9 years old. 6 to 9 years old. So I was a big Stone Cold fan. Like, still am to this day, and I actually got in more trouble putting up the middle finger to people than I did saying "suck it." But I did. My male classmates and I used to do "suck it" on the school bus. So like if we were parked in front of a car, like we would definitely do it to people outside of the car.
Badass kid. Go ahead and admit. Badass kid.
Basically. But it's like, we're wrestling fans. Sorry.
And I bet your father, okay, that's fine. I bet your father looked the other way when you got in trouble because he was a wrestling fan. He was the one showing you that stuff.
Yes. I actually have a funny story about that. He used to rip his shirt like Hulk Hogan.
Oh.
For me and my sister and my nephew when we were kids. And we used to get such a kick out of it, but I remember him telling us when we were young that we had to stop because he was going to run out of shirts.
It was that deep, huh?
Yes, because it was like every time he was like, "Okay, do the Hulk Hogan thing, do the Hulk Hogan thing."
What's your dad's name?
Richard.
Shout out to brother Richard.
Right.
That is a beautiful thing. He grew the next generation of wrestling fans. That's awesome. That's awesome stuff there. Let's talk about the product. Now that we know who you are, let's talk about the product here. Okay. And specifically, I mean, you brought up the women's revolution, and that topic to a certain degree has been beaten to death. Let's talk about what happens now. So, for instance, I saw a report where Taz, former ECW champion and former WWE superstar and commentator, Taz mentioned that he felt it was disrespectful to the pro wrestling business that Ronda Rousey, after about a year, is already taking an extended time off.
I don't think so.
She's doing that because she wants to start a family. As a woman, not just a pro wrestling fan, but as a woman, when you hear nonsense like that, what do you think?
I think what you said, I think it's nonsense. And I think people are contracted in WWE, and if she was contracted for 1 year and she was planning on having a baby after, that's on her. And I feel like as such a strong athlete for the last 10 years, I think she's granted to want to take some time off and start a family. You know?
Absolutely. And
I think she's granted, and I feel like women, you know, as far as starting families in WWE, I think have come a long way, because usually it was like you get pregnant and your career's over, but now you got like Brie Bella and Maurice and Maria Kanellis kind of representing for the working mom. So I think people just need to shut the fuck up, let people live their lives.
Damn right. And to even go beyond that, you know, last week here on the Duke Loves Wrestling podcast, I really dug into some of the comments that are being directed towards Sasha Banks. Mind you, we haven't heard from her. These reports from all these quote-unquote inside sources claiming that she's having a tantrum on the floor because she want to lose the tag titles and
all of that is
doing
so
this
false.
and doing that. What do you think about some of the comments from the fans, allegedly, from these fans who are calling her out, while at the same time they patted Cody Rhodes and even Luke Harper on the back for saying they want to leave the company because they feel they're underutilized? What do you think about some of these comments directed at Sasha?
I think, honestly, it's ridiculous. And I feel like people always have, like, this love-hate attitude towards Sasha Banks. Like, it's like she can do no right, you know? So I feel like once she felt like she was complaining, people just, like, kind of, like, just wanted to go in on her. But I think that she has a right to be frustrated. I don't believe the claim that she was, like, throwing a temper tantrum and stuff. But the way that fans reacted is just, like, it just makes it not fun anymore. You know what I mean? Like, if you have all of Twitter saying, like, she's just this ungrateful, like, you know, bringing up her race and stuff like that, like, it just is just, it's not right, and I think it just, like, takes the fun out of everything.
It's funny because some of her comments mirror comments that Naomi has been dropping, where Naomi, legitimately, she's been putting it out there herself. One thing is everything about Sasha up to this point has been speculation. We haven't heard from Sasha on this stuff. Naomi has said it, that she's disappointed in the way that not only she, but the other women have been treated within the company and what have you. And again, such a visceral reaction from these so-called fans.
Yeah, Sasha got booed on Tuesday.
Yeah, she did. She sure did, which is just ridiculous. So where do you see this thing going? Because the WWE loves to claim that they're an equal opportunity company, that they're committed to featuring women and treating them equally and what have you. But then they do something nonsensical like on Tuesday on SmackDown where they put half the roster in one match as opposed to featuring them as much as they did the men.
Yeah.
Do you think they're really committed to this women's revolution thing or is this just a joke?
Yo, Chris and I get that question all the time. And I believe that they are trying their best. I think that a lot of times they don't know what to do as far as this women's evolution. So they're just trying, they're trying their best. We had a WrestleMania main event. But I think we have a long way to go. If you even think of some of the storylines that happened, like on SmackDown, it's still very much like, think of like Naomi and Mandy Rose. Like it was very much like, you trying to take my husband's storyline.
Which was just foolish. It was
you know what I mean? It's, like we just need maybe better creative. We need better character development. We need more women on the roster. I was also kind of disappointed about even Becky being 2 belts because it takes away from one of the women's divisions. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I think, we still have a long way to go. But I think they're trying their best and I'm excited to see how far they go. We are making a lot of history. We had a lot of firsts.
When we look at what's happening with Asuka, and just to recap here, here's a woman who was considered one of the top wrestlers in the world, male or female, before she got to the WWE. She did have a strong reign as NXT Women's Champion. Then she gets put on the main roster, and from the very beginning, it seemed like they just did not know what to do with her.
No.
And even when they put the SmackDown Women's Championship on her, they didn't know what to do with her. She was barely featured, even though she was literally...
I literally would be like, where's Asuka?
Yeah. Did they drop the ball with her, especially with this new tag team that they put her in with Kairi Sane?
No, I think they, honestly, once she, lost to Charlotte, which I wasn't mad at because I think it was a really good match and I think Charlotte should have been the one to break the streak. They just did her so dirty from there. And then when she finally won the championship, I think it was basically for her to hold it until WrestleMania or until to set up WrestleMania. And I think this could be a good way to build her back up, this tag team. I'm excited for it.
That's an interesting perspective. And you know, to even go a step further here, when you look at who is being featured the most as it pertains to the women in the WWE, one of the things
the blonde white women.
Here we go. Despite the fact that they have a fairly diverse roster within the entire system.
And think about how good of a wrestler like Tamina Baker is.
Oh, and experience too. I mean, and you look at Ember Moon. Here's another one who was literally tearing it up on the indies
right now,
and they can't do anything with her. They don't know what to do with that young lady, even though she's more talented than 99% of the roster, male or female.
Agreed.
Are women of color not getting a fair shake in the WWE right now?
I think they are not getting their fair shake, but I don't always like to think of everything as race because, it's Becky's moment right now. It's been her moment for the last 2 years. So I'm not mad at the shine that she's getting. Now, can you use her to put over at Ember Moon? Yes, and let's see Ember Moon do a little bit of something, you know?
Good call.
Yeah. But I think they're doing their best. I don't want to make everything about race. Naomi's had the championship twice, you know? Ember Moon, she came back from injury and they put her in a prime spot answering Becky Lynch's challenge. So I can't, I don't want to always make things about that.
So you feel that the women of color are not being mistreated. It's just the way that the ball is being passed around.
Yes, I do believe that.
Fair enough. What do you like to see this year? I mean, the WWE fiscal year has officially begun. It's the day after WrestleMania. That's when they close the books for the year before that, and they start up the new books here. What do you expect to see happen this year, and what would you like to see happen, more importantly?
In context of the women's division?
In general.
Or in general? In general, I would like to see more of, what the fans actually want, Hello?
Like what?
Like Kofi winning, for example. More people champs, more of what we actually want to see. Keep Seth Rollins as Universal Champion for a while. Keep Kofi as champion for a little while. I would love to see the women get more meaningful storylines and more character development. Because they have good people. It's just it's what are you doing with them?
And how does that relate to what we're seeing industry wide? I mean, you look at AEW, it looks like they're going to be the biggest competition that WWE is going to have since WCW.
Mm-hmm.
Ring of Honor, right now they are the number 2 North American promotion in the world, strictly because their footprint on TV is so large because they're owned by Sinclair Broadcasting. They're seen on more TV sets around the country than any other wrestling promotion other than WWE.
Oh, wow.
And they have a Women of Honor. They have a strong women's division.
I've heard, and I've been hearing about Shimmer, too.
Oh, yeah, with Shimmer. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Shimmer
I know
is
that's
actually the
always
most
been a thing.
influential female promotion that's around today because everyone that you see who's a top star, for the most part, they've wrestled in Shimmer before. So, do you feel that these other promotions are going to influence the WWE going forward, or is it going to be the other way around? And if so, what's that influence going to look like?
I believe that WWE is going to have to step their game up because they have competition, not just entertainment value-wise, but for their talent. So I feel like they're going to have to make sure their talent is really happy and are being utilized in the right way. Because you're already starting to get AEW chants at their shows and shit is whack. So it's like they need to really set their game up and make sure their talent is happy.
Will we see more pay-per-views? I'm not talking about one. Will we see more pay-per-views that feature women in the main event? Or do you think that is a fad that's going to disappear?
No, I feel like the women's talent and drive and popularity is going to make it so that they have to main event stuff. Like, it's not even going to be a choice of, like, do we want women? It's going to be, like, the women are the main event, just like what happened at WrestleMania.
Good call. Good call. Listen, if our listeners want to check out what you have going on, especially your podcast, if they want to reach out to you on social media, give us the whole 9 yards here. How can folks reach out to you?
They can follow those wrestling girls on Twitter, T Wrestling Girls. You can follow me on Twitter, Queen 3_PR, and on Instagram. And subscribe to those wrestling girls on YouTube. We have a lot of fun episodes coming up.
That's great. Listen, I really appreciate what you're doing because it's done right, and you definitely know what you're talking about, which is always important because that you're legitimate. You're not just somebody trying to become famous and you're using pro wrestling as a vehicle to do it. You're actually somebody who is of the community, has been, you know the history, and you and your co-host there is really doing great things. So we'll definitely continue to collaborate.
I would love for her to be on next as well.
Well, you mentioned her so much, I'm going to have to get her on to see if she puts you over as much as you put her over.
And Duke, I really enjoyed this. And I really can't wait to listen to more of your show. And I hope that this isn't the last time you have me on.
This is the pastor of wrestling, Kevin West, and I'm listening to Duke Love Rasslin.
Something interesting keeps popping up, folks. Something I wanted to touch upon briefly, and really, I want to get your thoughts. There is a debate that's been brewing for a number of years, and it's only increased within the past year, concerning women and men wrestling and performing against one another. Now, listen, there's no right or wrong answer to this. Okay, let me put that out there. I don't want anyone to think that I'm setting them up to be attacked here, you know. And no, I'm not advocating for some kind of domestic violence or, you know, violence against women or anything ridiculous like that, or men for that matter. But in a pro wrestling setting, pro wrestling, sports entertainment, performance art, an exhibition of talent, I have absolutely no reason with men and women competing against one another. Now, does that mean that it has to get convoluted to the point where you don't have a distinctive women's championship or a distinctive men's championship? It's just the championship and whoever wins, wins, and that's it? No, I'm not necessarily asking for that. I don't want to take away championships. Not at all. But me personally, I don't have a problem with a woman wrestling a man. It doesn't make any sense to me to not see that. We can watch these movies where Wonder Woman, Captain America, and all these folks can kick a man's butt any day of the week, twice on Sunday. That's real life, man. Listen, I'm the son of law enforcement. I'll tell you right now, my mom could take half of you fools out there. It doesn't matter if you're over 6 feet tall. She'll take you out. So I've grown up with the notion that anything you can do, she can do just as well, if not better. And when it comes to competition, I mean, I've played sports with females. And some who've been a lot better than I'll ever be. That's a fact, man. All the way back to Little League. That's a fact. So I think there's a way to do it. I don't see why Asuka can't wrestle Lio Rush. I don't see why that would be a great match, to be honest with you. I don't see why that can't happen. I don't see why somebody like Ronda Rousey can't legitimately mix it up with somebody like Cesaro. Why not? Natty Neidhart could twist up and shoot on half the people on the roster. I said shoot. I didn't say any other badass word. Excuse me. She could take you out, man. She could twist you up. She's from that Hart family. They know what to do. So that's why I'm a supporter of the notion, not against it. And, you know, it happens on the indies a lot. It used to happen in WWE. You know, China was wrestling guys. She wrestled Eddie and Jericho and Jeff Jarrett. It happened. Beth Phoenix was in the Royal Rumble, the men's Royal Rumble. So was Nia Jax. It's okay. I don't have a problem with it. But I want to know from you guys out there. I want to know from the folks who listen to Duke Loves Wrestling, what do you think? Are you for or against mixed matches, women versus men? And if so, one way or the other, why? I think we'll get some interesting responses. In fact, you know what? Send the voicemails. DukeLovesWrestling@gmail.com. Send the voicemails. I want to hear your voice. Let's hear it in your own words. What do you think about mixed matches? Why are you for it or why are you against it? I think we'll get some good responses. I want to thank our guests, you know, Coach Davis and also Queen PR. Wow, some great guests this week, huh? Just great content. Seriously. I got to get out of here, folks. Listen, be kind to yourselves. Be kind to others. Join us next week. We'll have some more exciting guests, more exciting content. Maybe the Boston Bad Boy will actually show his face. Who knows? Who knows? Take it away, Tony Schiavone.
Mr. Tony Schiavone, and we're desperately out of time on Duke Loves Wrestling.